Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor right now and subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it, and then I could send watches like this to your inbox every day. If you like the watches, you can buy them on thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell luxury watches globally and 24 hours a day on thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing one of the most discussed watches of 2018. This is the Breitling Navitimer 8 Chronograph 43. 43 millimeters in stainless steel. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can get a better sense of its scale atop my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. Now, Breitling set out to do a few things, and as it crossed items off its task list, it helped to first size down the cases. 45, 46, 50, increasingly rare in the catalog, and the actual lug spacing itself from lug to lug has been somewhat pared down to make this 43 wear more compact, as it is 51 millimeters across the wrist lug to lug. Now, if you include the bracelet, it's still a Breitling, which is to say by no means undersized, as the outer extremity measurement to its opposite number on the other side, bracelet included, is 54.5 millimeters. That said, it is reasonably slim for a Valjoux 7750 base, 14.4 millimeters thick with a reasonably rounded bezel. This one will slip underneath most cuffs. In terms of lug spacing, it has a broad stance from lug to lug running lengthwise along the wrist, and you can see a professional 3 bracelet fitting the 23 millimeter lug gap. Now, the timepiece does fit the wrist well, as Breitling has sought to make its larger watches wearable, and it now considers 43 to be wearable. They have watches as small as 38 these days. Reshaping the case profile has been a large part of the program, and you can see that the lug shape is more sharply downturned and more tightly cropped. They've been cut off almost in a stubby fashion at the edge, so that one might even say that though this is a round-cased watch, it wears almost like a cushion case. You can see the Pro 3 bracelet here, all of satin finish, nicely made, still slash cut, still asymmetrical with larger center links. You can see that it is sized with screws, which, given the accessible price point of this watch, I do admire. I appreciate that fact. And the clasp itself is nicely made, polished internally with a secure clamshell lock. And you can see the Breitling logo itself has been revised, as it no longer features the company's longtime signature wings around the script B. Now, there are a couple of micro-sizable adjustments inside the clasp. If you use a strap tool, you can size in, you can size out. It does feature a little bit of a taper. As you can see, the bracelet flares as it approaches the lugs, and then the conforming end piece nicely integrates with the flank of the case. Much like contemporary Rolex and Omega watches, Breitling is on track to integrate the form of its bracelets into the form of its cases for coherence. You'll also note that the watch features a small amount of polish. As you can see outboard, the rim of the bezel has been polished, and so too has the flared lug about the case band. You'll also note that there's a distinct, almost invert ducktail to the profile of the lugs. They have a sharp geometry and faceting underneath to give them just a little bit more presence. Now, the case band is all of satin, and you can see the bezel itself is quite distinct from what we normally associate with a Navitimer. It's even a little bit distinct from what we might normally associate with a Breitling, as it doesn't use the captured bezel construction, which is the bezel held on by screws, nor is it a circular slide rule. It is a very smooth operating bidirectional unit that you can use to line up, for example, the minute hand with the index, and then you can have an impromptu 60-minute timer running in parallel with the chronograph itself. I should mention that due to the dearth of calibration on the bezel itself, it's something of an eyeball gauge. So you can tell when you're roughly halfway through, you can tell when you're approaching the end, but you're not necessarily going to read it minute by minute, because Georges Kern, current CEO of Breitling, decided simplicity would sell, and that's the ethos of this watch. You can see that continues on the dial, and the dial has quite a good deal to recommend it. Let's get a bit closer, grant ourselves a bit more light. It is a sunburst blue that's immensely handsome. It has a wonderful feel to it, with the luminescence of the sunburst grain radiating out and reacting dramatically with the soft light of my light box. I imagine it will be absolutely explosive in broad daylight. The white on blue printing is high contrast and easy to read, and there's a vintage style, almost railroad, with a nicely cantilevered set of hashes outboard of the hour track, and all of this inspired by instruments Breitling developed during the 1930s with its Huit Avigation division, essentially the namesake of the watch, the Navitimer 8 collection. But you'll also note that there are countersunk sub-registers. Now, this being a Valjoux 7750 based variant of the current collection, it doesn't have the tone-on-tone differential color between registers and dial base that you'll see, for example, on the Navitimer B01s. But it's still quite handsome, as the tri-registers are nicely countersunk with a slightly different finish about them, so that they present in a somewhat darker and less luminescent blue than the dial base itself. There will be a lume shot at the end, so stay tuned. You can see a day and a date function, very practical, allowing you to quickly reference this useful information. You have chronograph minutes up to 30, chronograph hours up to 12, and you'll note that there has been a distinction with smaller railroad-style calibrations for the minutes and hours as opposed to a broader railroad style for counter constant seconds at 9 o'clock. I should mention that there is still a yellow-gold Breitling B on the logo, once again shorn of its wings. Quick set for both the day and the date. Turn it over. You have vintage style pump pushers, the new Breitling B on the crown. You can see that the crown itself does not feature guards, but it is a screw down unit, and the watch is water resistant to 100 meters. The case back, well, all has changed here as well. As you can see, Navitimer 8, beautifully high polished, 100 meters water resistant. It is a COSC certified Swiss chronometer. Cal 13 is a Valjoux 7750 in chronometer grade. So 25 joules automatic winding, 48-hour power reserve, hacking seconds, 4 Hz or 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate, and a double quick set for rapidly cycling the day as well as the date. It's a crisp cam operation. Breitling, in addition to choosing the highest grade of Valjoux 7750 base, has also individually checked and regulated the movements. The high grade movement and that second qualitative check before shipping means that it functions at chronometer level as a fully cased up watch, but it also has a surprisingly crisp action for a cam chronograph. This is a handsome watch. Whether this is necessarily a Navitimer is going to be up to you guys. Only you can decide if this is what you imagine when you imagine a Navitimer. But as a face and as an aesthetic ethos for the future of the Breitling brand, it's a good start, a handsome watch, and a memorable look. More than just a pretty face, you can see and own this Breitling Navitimer 8 Chronograph 43 on our website. And we're back with the Breitling Navitimer 8 Chronograph 43. As you can see, a highly functional sports watch, day or night. This one's robustly luminescent. See it by the light of day and make it yours on our website.